This is the one where they're finally back in 60s England.
Except there are oversized props.
And close-ups of a regular-sized cat.
And a tale of murder
that was penned during a smoke break.
Enough said.
It's called The Planet of Giants.
Here we go.
We're embarking on a voyage all through time and all through space.
Encountering Daleks, Stalanood, and the Cybertronic race.
Sontarans look like taters, and Silurians all have wonky scales.
And the Doctor has a TARDIS, we're reviewing all his tales. Who back when? Reviewing all of who there is. Who back when?
Subscribe and rate on iTunes, please.
Episode by episode, we're trudging down this temporal road. Come join us on this odyssey. What other choice could there be than Who back when?
Who back when?
Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of Who Back When, a Doctor Who podcast. I am Ponkin.
I'm a Flaphammer.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And today we are reviewing Planet of Giants.
Don't know, is reviewing the right word?
Taking the piss out?
I don't know what you're going to do. I was going to say destroying. No, it's not that bad.
Nothing escapes the Flappinator.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad. Before we launch into the review, or into the plot, what are your thoughts on Planet of Giants?
Well,
shall we give a spoiler alert? Like, do you like this thing?
I couldn't work that out, but as we said just before we started recording this podcast, this was the first time I really got the sense that we were watching a children's TV show. Like before this, it seemed so adult, and it actually has been making me think, oh, the 60s, like they were really intense.
We did also specifically just recently come out of a very adult, very mature closing of Series 1.
With very adult themes, with lots of bludgeoning. And
tons of bludgeoning, a fucking guillotine, and now we're...
we've gone into, like, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And
I know.
Obviously, this well predates Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. They possibly stole the idea.
Yeah, but, wait, actually, hang on. I've got a more relevant reference for you.
Jules Verne.
No.
No, okay.
Although that's not bad.
Yeah.
I had to look up the date, but in 1968... very shortly thereafter, a TV show started that I also watched as a kid.
Yeah.
It called Land of the Giants.
That rings a bell.
And it was basically the same thing. Like, there was no time travel involved, but it was basically the same thing.
Well, this isn't really a time travel episode.
It was, by the way, it was by the same people who did Lost in Space and, Gilligan's Island, where they had the exact same stories, sometimes even the same scripts, and they just repurposed it for a different thing, right? But in this case, it was literally a whole series that was based on the same idea as this story arc. And it looked exactly the same.
But to answer your original question, I found myself during this episode trying to give it the benefit of the doubt a lot.
Okay.
There are a lot of things about this episode. I mean, I don't know if it was the version I was watching, but it seemed badly cut together. I'm trying to bear in mind that it was the 60s. I'm trying to bear in mind it was quite hard to represent the things they were trying to represent, like massive cats.
But
and earthworms the size of houses, but it's...
Yes, but, and no pun intended, props to the production team, because I really enjoy the props.
Yeah.
I totally enjoy the props.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I thought, spoiler alert, The Fly was amazing.
Oh my god, The Fly was fantastic! Oh my god, okay.
Terrific.
Let's launch into this bad boy, because this is going to be so good. Okay, do you want to start off?
Okay, well, to begin the story, basically the TARDIS is overheating, or something is going wrong with it. We're not quite sure what.
No, he says it's overheating, doesn't he?
Did he say?
I think so. Bob even burns her hand on the dash.
Yeah, she burns her hand on the dash, but she's concerned that it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's making lots of noises to that end.
Yeah.
The Doctor says initially that it's all fine, but that Susan needs to check the faulter gate.
Drum roll. Which shortly thereapon goes totally ape nuts.
Yeah, it always brings bad news.
Yeah.
Every time you... I wonder if they've ever checked the faulticator and it's actually said, yeah, everything's alright.
Everything's cool.
Yeah.
Susie, starts spanning all these numbers from the faulticator, and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
The door's open.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing can breach those doors, except, apparently...
Ian.
What? Ian can breach anything.
Well, it's really weird, because the door's open, Doc tells Ian to close the doors, and for, no reason whatsoever, Ian kind of doubts his word. He's like, what do you mean, close the doors?
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? You are travelling around in space and time. Maybe you should, roll up the window, right?
Yeah. And then we get a little 5-minute period. Everybody's quite upset. but the Doctor's really evasive to everyone's questions.
Yeah, it's what I refer to in my notes as fluff convo.
He seems to know exactly what's going on, but really, really doesn't want to tell anyone.
Can I just read out the note that I made about the fluff convo?
You sure can.
Thank you very much, Flaphammer. Okay, quite a lot of fluff combo here, in which essentially we don't find out what's happened, and just to clarify what exactly the Doc tells them, it's not what happened. Because it's exactly as you said, it's all circular.
Yeah.
Everything is circular, and it's not the only instance of circular fluff combo in this story arc.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Barb tries to calm everything down, and she actually says to the Doctor, "Oh, everything's all right."
Yeah.
"Oh, don't be childish. They opened," and everything is sort of that.
That's the explanation.
Yeah, that is the explanation.
Well, it's actually a little bit. It's almost reminiscent of her explanation of what happened in Edge of Discretion. Yeah. Anyway, Susie returns from the faulticator, says no faults reported, and Doc basically goes, "Susie, you're full of shit," and then goes to check it himself.
But yeah, he is upset, and he does actually issue an apology to Barbara for how upset he gets.
The Doc is different, by the way.
Yeah, he's much, much nicer.
He's such a nice dude.
Again, sorry for saying it again, but we'll get to that. There are some really, sea changes in his character in this episode. But
sea changes?
Yeah, a sea change. You don't know this phrase?
I do not know this phrase.
Yeah, it's a phrase. But the Doctor says some very harsh things. One of my particular favourites was, "Oh, please, won't you stop talking at a 20th century level? I'm talking about time travel, boy."
Which is ridiculous.
He's just very harsh. But he does apologise, and it's a very sincere apology he gives to Barbara.
Yeah, he does. In the meantime, by the way, he's gone and basically confirmed what his granddaughter literally told him a moment earlier.
Yeah.
And while he was doing that, she has explained to Barbara and Ian, henceforth referred to as Bi, that the most dangerous part of time travel is the rematerialization. Well, the materialization.
Which kind of makes sense when you get on a plane, right? When it takes off and when it lands, that's the most dangerous time. So I can buy it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Fine.
Then the Doctor issues those immortal words, which he's used possibly for the 4th time. "It's quite safe to go outside."
That is very true.
Why does he always think that?
I don't know.
It's never safe to go outside.
You know what it might be? It might be that they just took... That was the only scene in Edge of Discretion or whatever where they did more than one take, and all this is like stock footage of Hartnell saying, "It's fine, it's safe. Let's just shit one of those into every episode." Can I also just make one point? When he says... when he apologizes to Barbara, which is groundbreaking, right? Bob says there's nothing to forgive. That's her response. And I think maybe a resounding "what the fuck" should be echoing through the TARDIS right now. What she should be saying is "Thank you very much for apologizing. I forgive you for being rude just now, Doctor, but while we're on the subject of apologies, I don't forgive you for kidnapping my baby daddy in space and me, you fucking piece of shit."
I took it more as she's kind of gotten used to the idea of being kidnapped. She's gotten used to the fact the Doctor is very rude. He is a grouchy old man.
That's true. And this is also Series 2. There's probably been a break between Series 1 and Series 2, a relatively lengthy break.
Well, so you think the viewers meant to have forgotten a little bit
either
what
that
the Doctor's done to them?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking either that or possibly they got some viewer feedback, and the feedback was, "Listen, he's too much of a cunt. Seriously, can you maybe tone it down a little bit?"
Yeah.
Why would they travel around with this piece of garbage? Just make him a nice man.
Yeah. Which he really is.
Yeah.
He's really nice. But he does have a very relaxed attitude to health and safety, as explained.
Yeah.
He's still absolutely certain that it's safe to go outside, even when the monitor explodes. And why does it explode again,
Okay.
Honkin?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked, Flaphammer, because the Doctor explains it broke because it was trying to film something that was too big.
Hello.
That's essentially it. Yeah, that's definitely a hello moment. Which makes absolutely no sense. Is that why we have no photographic evidence of mountains? And And does it work the other way around? As per my notes, is that why no small dick men are allowed in pornography?
But it didn't scramble the hard drive. The actual glass broke. It was
the glass broke. It was for some reason, if you film something that is really big, it also increases the size of the pixels, and the pixels in this case were I'm assuming they're not on 1080p, and then all of a sudden the screen just broke. It's just so dumb, but it doesn't matter. It makes perfect sense within the context of the story.
Possible reasons it might have broken. Maybe it's having trouble recalibrating to the fact that they are tiny.
That's very possible.
So, as you're talking about pixels, I mean, maybe if it's a really high definition scanner, maybe at that size they should be able to see at microscopic level, but the TARDIS just can't handle it. It's just there's too much information. It's like Rain Man. It's
maybe.
Yeah,
it's very possible.
I doubt they actually thought that one through.
No,
but
and also the Doctor doesn't give that as an alternative explanation, so most likely no. They actually just filmed something that was too big.
But it works nicely as a plot driver.
Yeah. By the way, if he has already reasoned that they must have filmed something that was too big for it, why does it take them forever to figure out that they've shrunken?
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Okay, fine. So
his explanation of what's actually happened in the TARDIS, and I quote, "The space pressure was far too great while we were materializing."
Bingo. Yep.
Yeah. What? Why would that cause the doors to open? I don't understand that.
I don't know. Thank God we cut silences.
All right.
I think, okay, I'm going to say...
Looks blankly.
I'm going to say, okay, the space pressure, whatever the shit that is, was not so strong that it blew the doors open. Yeah, it was rather so strong that it somehow it tampered with the mechanics of the TARDIS.
Okay, because they slightly creak open, and Ian is able to push them back.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're in an airplane and you get sucked out
the space
of 30,000 feet.
Yeah, exactly. The space pressure is too strong for the TARDIS doors, but not too strong for Ian.
Hence, Ian is stronger than the TARDIS.
Ipso facto, Ian is stronger than space. Okay, so anyway...
Well, we know all these things to be true.
Let's go on to minute 2 of this story arc,
right.
Where they finally exit the TARDIS and examine a strange rock formation, which may or may not be concrete, and which Ian refers to as pebbles of sand.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, should be on the drinking game list as well. By the way, just a note, later on we find out that they've shrunken, spoiler alert, but they haven't shrunken to microscopic size.
No, they're an inch.
Yeah, exactly.
An inch high.
So a grain of sand, it shouldn't be the size of a pebble, right?
I'm having trouble getting my head around that. If you were an inch tall,
what she said.
Well, maybe it was very coarse concrete. Okay?
Maybe.
Let's go with that.
By the way, the camera work when they climb out of the TARDIS, when they disembark, the camera work is actually really nice because even though they may as well be anywhere, right? I mean, it's a backdrop like any other plasticine or cardboard alien backdrop.
Yeah.
It still has that sense of looming and being very large. Everything is oversized, even though we have no actual frame of reference at this point. They're not standing next to something recognizable.
And we have no idea where they are.
No, exactly.
They could be in a mountainous region of the Himalayas, for all we know. Yeah, except there's concrete.
Yeah, we should probably mention that we clearly knew exactly everything about this episode before we started watching it.
I didn't.
Wait, you didn't know they were back on Earth? You didn't know that they had shrunken?
No, I didn't know any of it.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No. But I worked it out the second they got out of the TARDIS. It's not hard to see.
No.
Anybody who watches it will know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, another by-the-way moment. Whenever they exit the TARDIS, I have yet to hear them go, yes, we've tested the atmosphere and there's oxygen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they
Trial
decide
and
to...
error.
Yeah. Well, so they decide to split up.
Yeah, well, what a surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. They split
Into
up.
a random configuration again.
Oh my god, drinking game line. I love it when you say that.
Why?
This
Why
time
the
it's
Doctor and Barbara?
Doc and Bob and Ian and Susie. And Ian seems reluctant at first, but then sort of relents and says, okay, fine, just give me the crap one. And then immediately thereupon, Bob and Doc encounter a giant earthworm, which is clearly a giant earthworm.
Yeah, which they are both absolutely certain is a dead snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously they're on Earth, and they know that they're on Earth, correct?
Yeah.
I mean...
no.
I think they do. I think the Doctor definitely knows that they're on Earth, but that something has gone wrong in materialization.
Right, okay.
Right? So if they're on Earth, they see something that clearly does not look like an earthen snake. but that does resemble a large earthworm. It seems like the first conclusion that you would reach is that that is an earthworm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if you're a hugely knowledgeable time traveller, you would know no snake looked like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But whatever.
No dice. Susie and Ian, in the meantime, find a bunch of eggs.
Yeah.
Ian, the science professor, or science teacher, wrongly identifies them as ostrich eggs.
Yeah.
And then they encounter a giant ant.
Yeah.
That is dead.
Everything's dead.
Ian confirms that it's dead without touching it, and like, wait, don't trust this guy, Susie, just ask him if it's made out of metal. Anyways.
Metal or stone, Ian. But quite quickly, Ian and Susan run into a huge sign which says it's printed in Norwich.
Actually, before then, Dokken and Susie, they ID it as an earthworm because they find the other end of the worm, right?
Yeah.
And the doc says, and I quote, he says, "There's a pattern behind this mystery that suggests a brain with a plan."
Yeah, I remember him, I probably misremember him saying there's a godhead behind all of this.
Yeah. Does this pan out in any way?
Well, yeah, kind of.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the plan?
Well, I guess they're in a cultivated area, i.e. a garden. So there is somebody planning the ecosystem. So the guy who's, putting down the chemicals, which, spoiler alert, is, the crux of the story, is kind of, designing this.
Very interesting. I didn't see it like that at all, but I think you're probably very, very right. I assumed that this was a comment on,
not.
I assumed that this was a comment on, why is this earthworm large? I assumed that at this point, they didn't realize that they had shrunken, but he thought, okay, fine, this thing is huge, but there must be a brain with a plan behind the size of it.
Well, I like to think that all along the Doctor has his suspicions that actually they have been shrunken. Something has gone wrong. He never explicitly says it, and that's part of his vagueness. He's not 100% sure, but he's got his suspicions about what's happened.
Kind of echoing, later on, we'll get to that, but echoing Barbara later on being poisoned and not wanting to tell anyone.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, well, she survived. Anyway, so... Here comes the baffling moment. You mentioned it. They walk past this huge picture or container or whatever of night-scented stock.
Yeah.
And they even, it's Susie and Ian, and they even read that it's made in Norwich. Susie, the brainchild, goes, "That's in England, isn't it?" And only then does Ian realise they're on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he thinks that they're in an exhibition.
Which is so fucking dumb. Doc and Bob, we
what
basically
exhibition would that be?
I don't know. I have no idea. But basically, we have, two very similar stories. We have Susie and Ian, and we have Doc and Bob.
And we're seeing them side by side.
Exactly.
Back and forth.
And they're basically doing the exact same thing. One meets an earthworm, the other one meets a dead ant, and then, whatever.
Yeah.
But,
and the Doctor's drawing conclusions at approximately the same rate as Susan.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like.
Exactly. Doc and Bob, they find a huge matchstick. Ian and Susie find a huge matchbox.
Yeah.
Ian, the science teacher, once again, a man of science, logic and reason, says that it must be an exhibition. Like the World's Fair is what he says. And then Doc and Susie put it together. Separately. Individually they do.
At the same time.
At the
separately.
same.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Is that what you said before? I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so then, I don't know, smash cut to Ian dangling his feet off the edge of this gargantuan matchbox and still not believing her. Which is so ridiculous.
But the Doctor has deduced that they're about an inch big.
Yeah.
He's somehow tested that. He's got some results from someone. Despite never going back inside the TARDIS.
Yeah.
He's got some results from somewhere and has deduced that they're about an inch big.
Yeah. And when this is divulged, we get this fantastic zoom out of the TARDIS between the cobblestones of a front garden path or something. And we see a nice little house. They're obviously going to be in England for budgetary reasons. And we get, we understand that they're in a, as you said, cultivated environment. Anyway, Susan's Ian, don't be such a silly twat. The door's open and the space pressure caused us to reduce in size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reasonable to me.
Makes perfect sense. So space pressure is clearly a logical point for her as well. Then this shadow falls upon them.
Well, to be fair, I don't really know what space pressure does. I don't even really know what space pressure is. So maybe it could cause you to reduce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
Seemingly it does.
She also, by the way, says reduce. She doesn't say reduce in size. She just says reduce.
Well, reduce what else?
Well, anything in charm.
Like boil them down? I don't know.
Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter. So this shadow falls over them.
Yeah.
They start panicking.
See, this I found bizarre. So, yeah, a shadow falls over them. Ian's inside the matchbox.
Yeah, he climbs. No, sorry, he falls into the matchbox.
Yeah.
Picked up by some dude.
Yeah. Why has the guy who's picking up the matchbox to light a cigarette?
Yeah.
Why has he left his matchbox?
That's exactly the note I made. I said he's picked up by some guy who'd, for no reason whatsoever, been keeping his matches and briefcase on the lawn.
So, wait. This isn't that guy's house. That guy, it turns out, is a government minister.
No, that is the dude's house.
Oh, it is his house.
Yeah, isn't it?
No,
I think that's okay. So the guy in question is Mr. Farrow.
Yeah.
Right. I reckon this is Farrow's house. He's just waiting for the other dude, Forrester. Spoiler alert, people will get to this. Forrester to arrive and chat in there, and then Smithers arrives as well.
He's on holiday.
No, he's just going to start his holiday.
Yeah,
he's going to
about
France.
To start his
he's
holiday.
going to France.
Oh, maybe it is his house. Maybe it is his house.
I think
He's just about to get on his boat.
Another point for it being his house is the phone number, because later on the extension lady's like,
right.
Is this you, Mr. Farrow?
Yeah.
So
no,
it's definitely his house.
Yeah.
And as you do in your own home, you keep stray matches in the garden.
Well, I do. I don't know about you.
I don't have a garden. If I did, I probably would.
I've got a concrete garden.
Anyway, Susie's in the state, Doc's quite blasé, and then cut to drink Gina. Interior of Matchbox, same time, Ian has turned into a dashboard Elvis. He's like
amazing.
flipping and flopping all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I think my version of it was so bad. Like, it was a badly rendered version. I couldn't see the edges of the matchbox. It looked as though Ian was just in a black space. Like, he was doing a mime, basically.
Yeah, essentially, that is what he was. I think he was standing, like, between two black, sheets or something.
I put that down to the production values of the person who uploaded this to the official DVD.
I think your secret's out, dude.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Anyway, so the old guy who picked him up sets the box back down on the ground. He doesn't put it in his pocket.
Well, that's where
he keeps, one might
that's
think
where he keeps his matches. We know that's where he keeps his matches.
Anyway, he puts it back on the ground. Susie climbs up on whatever it is, like a cobblestone or something. My note here is she's got a cracking ass, by the way. And but the doc insists that it's easier if he climbs up instead, and if she and Bob make a great effort to help him up there instead. Like, and all the way up and all the way down, all he does is complain. Which is pretty good. Then he sees the old man, and there's even more circular fluff. Which is, I haven't done an actual quote, but the circular fluff is like Barbara going, "Listen, we need to find Ian," and then the doctor going, "Stop shouting, we need to find Ian."
Well, this is the sea change moment we were talking about at the start of the episode.
Okay, can you please explain sea change? Is that character change?
Yeah, it like when you say sea change, it means like a huge change.
Oh,
like there is a very big shift.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am learning stuff right now.
You're always learning. That's why I come around.
Yeah. Teach me, Juana.
But yeah, the doctor like tries to explain to Barbara, even though she's already there, that they can't leave without Ian. Like, and he keeps reiterating it. It's so important that they stay together, and they're proper friends now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which isn't like his character at all.
No, that's true. But we already got hints of this happening in Sensorites, beginning of Sensorites.
What happened?
You remember the Sensorites starts off with them having like a 3 minutes banter session about how they've all changed and now they're all buddies.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
So I reckon there was serious feedback from people just going, this is unreasonable.
Yeah, he is unreasonably harsh.
Yeah.
Not only does he kidnap them, he doesn't care if they live or die.
Yeah. Anyway, dude, kablamo, cue the entirely separate plot line.
Mm-hmm.
The old dude, Mr. Farrow, he's an investigator for some ministry. Right?
Yeah.
And
well, I presume just the British government.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the cultivation department for the British government.
Yeah.
Well, he works at Whitehall, we're told.
Oh, does he?
He's from Whitehall.
Oh, okay, right,
yeah.
Fine.
So he is. He's from the British government. And basically, he's produced a report on this new insecticide. That's...
DN6.
Yeah, so he reports... He has produced a report on the new insecticide DN6. And he's basically saying to the businessman who's trying to produce it, whose name is...
Mr. Forrester, who turns up, like, out of the blue lighting a cigarette.
Yeah, but saying it's really dangerous, like, we can't allow this on the British public.
Yeah.
Yeah. At which point, Mr. Forrester pulls a gun out.
Yeah, kinda. Like, well, before he does that, like, alright, fine. So, Farrow won't endorse DN6. Forrester explains that it'll ruin him financially.
Mm-hmm.
And then Farrow says, like, I'm really sorry to hear that, but here, I'll provide you with an alibi and a 2-week head start should you wish to murder me. Which is a sentiment that Mr. Forrester fucking obviously harbours.
I'm off on a boat with no witnesses, entirely on my own.
I'm going to be away for 2 weeks and out of contact with the world.
And travelling across the channel in you know, murky weather.
I've got a rickety boat.
It's leaking a little.
Here, do you have enough bullets for your gun? So then, what's this? Forrester pulls a gun, transpires the obvious sometimes is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then I guess we cut back to the troop. So Doc and BS, they encounter like a bee that literally dies midair and falls to the ground before their feet. And they, sorry, not they, but the doctor recognizes like this strange aroma on the corpse. Like an aroma that he encountered before when they saw the earthworm. And clearly to us, this is DN6, right? Like there is a pesticide, all these animals are dying. And then all of a sudden we hear a gunshot. And this is super duper fucking weird. Because, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. These are the notes that I've made. You made a point before saying that perhaps something was lost and it was cut differently or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But these are the notes that I made, and this is what I saw. Farrow's dead on the ground.
Yeah.
Ian disembarks the matchbox, walks up to Farrow, takes out a white handkerchief, unfolds it, puts it back in his pocket. Cut to, he's back with the rest of the gang.
Yeah. That it was super weird. Didn't make any sense. But as I was saying to you before we started recording, this is my theory.
Yeah.
So the version I was watching and you were watching was from an Australian TV station.
Okay.
A lot of Doctor Who episodes that were initially thought to be lost were found because they'd been sent out to Australian TV stations,
exactly.
South African TV stations.
Someone still had the tapes or whatever.
Yeah.
But very possible.
But apparently in the 60s in Australia, there were very harsh censoring rules.
Really?
So they were cutting stuff all the time. So sometimes what we're actually seeing isn't the full
version
thing.
That is very, very possible.
So it may be the case that they've cut a little scene there, which possibly was too scary or was a bit racy or something for the Australian censors. So it ceases to make sense to us.
Okay.
It's fine.
I still have to say, there was a lot of...
Because it's really,
not graphic.
It's cut really abruptly.
It's very abrupt. He must have traversed, relatively speaking, a tremendous distance, right? Because he's tiny. But still, there were a lot of, not necessarily graphic, but clearly quite gruesome scenes in this episode. Or in this story
we don't
at large.
see them.
Well, we do see a dead dude, close-up of a dead dude.
Mm.
And then, like, we see the...
We don't see the blood.
No, okay, fine. There's no blood, but there's, like, them walking around, like, pulling the corpse around. By the way...
That was pretty grim.
That's pretty grim. By the way, they're in a front yard. There's been a fucking gunshot.
No, it's a backyard.
Then how did Forrester turn up? Clearly he came in from the street.
Perhaps he was already inside the house. Maybe he made himself a cup of tea and then came back out into the garden. Because as you say, if it had been the front garden, he couldn't have reasonably shot him, left him there for like an hour.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Come over and dragged his bloody corpse.
Dude, they're clearly in like UK suburbia.
Yeah.
There's been a gunshot. They leave the dude in the garden forever. And like no one calls the police.
We're going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But when they do drag his bloody corpse, they don't have to go through a gate or anything. They actually just take it inside a lab, which made me think it's a back garden.
Okay, maybe. Alright, maybe. Fine. Moving on. Alright, so Ian takes a little bit too long a time to piece the gunshot together, essentially. He's even seen the corpse, but it takes him a long time to figure out that this dude's been shot. So then, cut a long story short, a cat arrives, Susan panics, end of episode 1.
It was a strange cutting sequence, because it's not as if the cat just arrived. We saw a couple of quick, cuts to a still frame of a cat.
Yeah.
Before that.
Still frame?
Was it still frame?
I don't think so.
Maybe
I think it's just a cat basically nuzzling the camera lens. And then, end of episode 1. Episode 2, A Dangerous Journey.
Yeah.
And the cat essentially is now leaving, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit before then where the doctor, whilst looking straight into the cat's eyes, goes, don't look straight into the cat's eyes.
I was going to say, he's got some good little nuggets of advice in the eventuality that a cat is watching you.
Yeah.
So, as you said, don't look into the cat's eyes. I don't fancy being mistaken for a mouse. Fair enough.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, he's got some very tips. Good tips. This has clearly happened before.
Well done, dog.
Yeah.
However, essentially what we can do now is cue the Davis principle. Thank you again, Davis, listener of the show, who said that most episodes are about how they can't get to the TARDIS, because the Doctor says, because there's a cat...
Did he actually say it's about how they can't get to the TARDIS? That's the framing device for every episode.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
initially, they couldn't get to the TARDIS because they couldn't leave because Ian was missing. That was why they couldn't get back.
Sure.
Now, the reason is the cat mixed in with
but once again...
pesticide.
Sure, but now, once again, the goal of the story arc is for them to get back to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ridiculous in lots of different ways. But okay, so the cat disappears, right? And then we get one explanation that will actually serve the rest of the plot. Ian says that no one can hear them because to like human ears they would just sound like a squeak.
Yeah.
Just like they can't understand what people are saying because they're too loud and booming.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, makes no sense at all.
Well, and they get into a great little sequence. This is cutting forward a little bit, but they're in a plug hole. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
The Doctor and Susan are in a plug hole, and they're calling for Susan.
Yeah.
They're calling for Barb and Ian.
Oh, yeah.
And the Doctor makes a very nice little explanation that serves it perfectly, where he says, yeah, if you shout loudly, like, this sink will act as a funnel, so it'll be really loud.
We're in a sandbox.
They'll be able to hear you. And then Susan's like, well, won't the people be able to hear us then? And he was like, oh no, it's at too high a frequency.
Yeah.
So it does both things at once. They can be super loud without being heard, which is wonderful, for their own purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says maybe dogs can hear them.
Exactly. Animals might hear whatever frequency they're on. Okay, let's get back to the plot. Ian says that they just sound like a squeak. Bob says if they were found by humans, they would just be probed. And the Doc says there's a far more sinister thing going on here, because clearly a murderer lives in this house, and you can't trust a criminal. Those are actual words coming from a kidnapper's mouth.
You can't trust a criminal mind.
Criminal mind.
Which is what he's got.
Yeah.
A devious criminal mind.
Yeah. Also, why would a murderer be living in that house?
He's not. Well, according to your explanation, he doesn't live there.
It's definitely not Forrester's house.
Do you know what?
There's a fucking lab. That's clearly not Forrester's lab. That is clearly Farrell's lab.
What happened to me? I believed the Doctor's explanation. So I just took for granted he was right.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Next up, a huge leg is arriving, says Ian. Then they just scamper. Bob falls over because she's utterly useless. And then they're split up, as per usual, and Doc and Susie are in Team 1, and Ian and Bob are in Team 2.
Yeah.
And Ian suggests that he and Barbara hide in the briefcase, which is an absolute rubbish idea, because, like, why would they hide in something that might get picked up?
Yeah, and he's already had some experience of this.
Exactly.
Having been inside a matchbox.
They could fucking hide under a flower petal and no one would ever see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't, yeah.
But there's pesticide in the flower petal.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
But they don't know that yet.
Yeah. They could have hidden inside the cracks inside the concrete. There's a lot of places they could have hidden, basically, that wasn't inside the briefcase.
Yeah.
And
then another dude turns up.
Yeah, another dude turns up, and at this point we get a bit more of an idea of the plot.
Yeah, exactly. This other dude,
plot.
What's his name, Flaphammer?
His name is Smithers.
Smithers. Yeah. He turns up in an inconspicuous-looking lab coat, a stained lab coat.
Yeah.
He looks like a guy who's either like Frankenstein's lab assistant, or possibly a dude who just spills coffee all the time.
Yeah.
And then he and Forrester start talking a little bit.
Well, Forrester starts spinning Smithers some cock and bull story about how the minister died. Oh yeah, he fell over and landed on a bullet.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
Like, it was self-defense. He pulled the gun, and then they tussled. Like, he wrestled him for the gun, and then accidentally it went off.
Yeah, and Smithers sees straight through it. It's just like, bullshit, you killed him, didn't you?
Yeah, he even says, like, I hope you tell a better story to the police.
Yeah.
Which is, like, oh, right, okay, so Smithers, you're not a nice dude either.
Well, we think he's not a nice dude. He actually turns out to be a pretty reasonable dude. But
he does also say that he hated Farrow.
Yeah, well, he didn't like that he was trying to destroy the project, and they conspire on how to get rid of the body.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the whole boat thing.
But he does have sort of good intentions.
Well, even at this point, he says quite clearly, I'm doing this to save people from starvation. I'd never get involved in something so murky otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And thus he reluctantly agrees to Forrester dumping the corpse in the channel. Mm-hmm. So it turns out the alibi was perfectly valid and whatever.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, so the briefcase is picked up and moved inside, so Ian and Barb have been moved inside the house. The Doc and Susan are hiding out inside a drain pipe, which is a much better idea. And the Doctor proposes that they must climb inside the drain pipe to get inside of the house.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we've also seen Bob and Ian disembark the briefcase. Well, and she's hurt her foot.
But also, for some reason, just staying with the Doctor and Susan for the moment.
Go for it.
For some reason, the Doctor starts admonishing Susan as if she's like a selfish little bitch. Like, he says to her, remember, you must always think of the other two.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what?
I think this is overcompensation for season 1.
I think it must be, because Susan is nothing but nice. Like, she's very caring about, particularly Barbara. I think she's got a real bond there. Yeah. Why is the Doctor telling Susan off for not thinking of the other two?
Yeah, I know. It's totally ridiculous.
It doesn't make any sense, but he's angry with her.
Yeah. Anyway, so they decide to climb up this drain pipe into the lab indoors, which is like, wait, hang on, how do you know there's a lab in there? But the only thing the only clue that he has to this is that there's a weird chemical smell coming out of the drain pipe, so he figures, okay, this must be some sort of whatever, like it's a lab on the other side with chemicals. Now, the chemicals must mean that it's clean in there, and fortunately the inside of the drain pipe is all corroded, so there's lots of like hand and foot holes in that.
Yeah.
But like, you are tiny. Your phalanges will fucking melt if you try to touch this drain pipe. But no, we have no idea. It's like he's been testing the inside of it while he's been smelling it or whatever. So while they're doing that, Ian and Bob...
he's right.
He's totally right. While they're doing that, Ian and Bob have disembarked the briefcase, and she's hurt her foot or her ankle on a paperclip.
That's right.
Yeah, in the bag, or in the briefcase. And she wants to have a foot bath.
And she sends Ian off to go and find some water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No dice, comes back, no water. Mm-hmm. And instead...
But they do discover a little test tube area.
Yeah.
And a big pile of wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge pile of wheat covered in goo,
sticky stuff.
Sticky stuff, which is now all over Bob's hands.
Yeah.
And as a viewer of the show, one must assume that, okay, that is DN6 on the wheat, and it's now all over Bob.
Yeah.
And so they sit down on some litmus paper and start talking about how there's poison everywhere. Like Ian says, like, there's poison everywhere, don't touch anything, including the wheat. Yeah. And Bob just neglects to tell him that she already has. And basically, this is like she's a peripheral character in a zombie film. You know, like any zombie film, there's one
at the back.
There's always one at the back who gets bitten or scratched or whatever and doesn't want to tell anyone that he or she is about to turn.
Sex machine.
Bingo!
Yeah.
This is Bob is Sex Machine.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a nickname for her for this episode. So anyway,
we should reference Sex Machine from the movie
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Dusk Till Dawn, yeah.
Okay, so nice reference, by the way. Anyway, so Ian suggests to Sex Machine that they string together a few paper clips to make a ladder, which they don't, and
well, we never see it, but they do. They do get up there.
Well, go up where? They want to make a ladder out of paper clips so that they can get down from the table, but instead of even attempting it, they find the chain down to the drain pipe.
Hold on. No,
later on, when Doc and Susie arrive...
No, Ian goes up to open the suitcase. They've got to get up to the suitcase, and I thought that was why they were fashioning the scaffolding out of paper clips. Because the next thing we see is Ian on top of the suitcase.
Which is brilliant, by the way.
Trying to open it. That's a great scene. That's really well put together.
Okay, maybe so maybe they attempt to get back in there to get the paper clips, but they don't finish it because the fly arrives. Maybe that's it. I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold on.
Whatever.
No, I remember this quite clearly.
Okay.
So... we don't...
There's like this look of justice in your face right now. It's great.
No, I'm just trying to hold it together. So we don't actually see the scaffolding made out of paper clips, but the next thing we see is Ian on top of the suitcase.
Yeah, trying to unclamp like this ginormous lock.
Yeah, Barb is going to follow, although Ian says he doesn't need any help.
Oh shit, sorry, you're totally right. And she has a Mexican standoff with
a fly.
Yeah, with a house fly.
And she faints, having seen the fly, which is super well done, by the way.
Such a good fly.
It's a terrifying
It's definitely the best prop monster so far.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the perspective work that was done on top of the suitcase is the best perspective work done in the series.
So then Ian turns up, he carries her off just as Forrester and Smithers enter, and they argue, and then they leave again. Cut to the Doctor and Susie by the giant drain. Like, they've now climbed all the way up, and he tells her that the sink is acting as an echo chamber. So if they shout in there, then someone might actually hear them, including, obviously, Bai.
Yeah. But taking away any concerns that anyone else will hear them, the Doctor actually says, it's going to be too high pitched for anyone else. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for clarifying that.
It works on both ends.
Yeah, that's what she said. So then Bob wakes up too.
Yep.
He wakes up, and Ian tells her that the fly flew off, landed on the wheat, and died instantly.
Yeah.
Bob still does not tell him anything. As in, she still doesn't tell him that she touched the wheat. Yeah. So then we hear Susan screaming, "Ian! Barbara!" Vi start descending the chain into the sink. But Smithers and Forrester have just finished haphazardly doing an awful job of de-CSIing the yard, and are coming in to wash their hands, so Bai have the hardest time ever ascending once again.
And they wash their hands so slowly.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Painstakingly slowly.
Oh, before Smithers starts washing his hands, like, the Doc and Susie, they climb back down into the drain pipe, and the plug is popped in. They hear the water, filling the sink.
Yeah.
And then, I guess cliffhanger ending of episode 2, Smithers pulls the plug.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Episode 3, crisis.
I mean, if you wanted to describe the word crisis, like being stuck down a plug hole when water's about to come down, it would be a pretty good explanation.
Webster's Dictionary defines crisis as... Totally. Anyway, so Doc and Susie, they're hiding in the overflow pipe.
Yeah.
And we see...
Very clever.
It looks very nice, actually. They're like, all of the prop work is freaking great.
No, not all of it.
Okay, give me an example of bad prop work.
There is some bad. I can't actually think of any at the moment. You're right.
Surprise.
All right, we'll see as we go.
Okay, fine. Bai go back down to look for them, don't find them, and immediately lose hope. Kablamo, Doc and Susie turn up.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Forrester is prank calling Whitehall, pretending to be Farrell, and giving his official approval of DN6.
And his only cover as to, like, why his voice doesn't quite sound right is he puts a hanky over the receiver.
Yeah, and says that it's a bad line.
Yeah.
And then, this is also...
But the operator, this is important plot.
Oh, yeah,
the operator notices that it doesn't sound like Mr. Farrell.
Yeah, well, she starts
and notes
suspecting...
it to the policeman.
Does she really?
Why is there a policeman sitting on the side?
I was just going to ask you that. So
but there is. And she notes it to the policeman.
Yeah. The policeman who's just, like, sitting there with his feet on the table next to the reception lady.
Looking for trouble. In the operating room. What?
Anyway, so the next scene, to me, makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay.
So we go to the gang, who have now found a notepad with what Ian, the veteran science teacher, says...
Veteran? He's like 30.
What he says looks a little bit like molecular structures. And Susie says there's a chemical formula there, which Ian cannot recognize. Now,
to be fair, they are standing on top of a pad.
But the pad is not that big. It really isn't that big. And anyone, like, even if you're that small, if you just stand back, maybe, relatively speaking, a couple of meters, you see that.
I can believe
you will be able to read it. You can read billboards, right? Like, you see posters. You go to the cinema and see a huge screen.
Have you ever tried to play a giant game of chess? Like one of those life-size games of chess
yes, I have.
in a park, yeah?
Sure.
Do you not get really disorientated?
Not that disorientated.
I get super disorientated. It takes me so long to make a move because I can't actually get the whole picture in.
Sounds like you do this a lot, by the way.
No, I don't. I've maybe done it twice. But yeah, I find it super difficult. It really disorientates me. So even though you can see everything at once, because you can't stand back and gain that sense of perspective, it's really difficult.
Yeah, but
that's basically what they
but
say.
in my opinion, they're just, actually, you know what? Maybe this is the one instance of bad prop work. Because essentially, it seems to me, seeing the frame of them on the notepad, it seems as though it's not that big. Because, two of them next to each other basically cover the width of the notepad. Clearly you could read that. That shouldn't be a problem. But instead they treat it as though they are molecular in size.
Right,
and the doc even had, like, devises this plan. He's like, okay, now stand there at these coordinates and then tell me what you see. And he's, like, going to basically play Battleship and go, like, okay, so B4, oh, it looks like a squiggly line. That must be a whatever.
All right. Suspend your disbelief. Sure. They're an inch big. Imagine how wide a notepad must be.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, consider disbelief suspended. Interesting note to make here, though, is that Bob says that the molecules and whatever, the formula on this notepad might be a cure. And Ian goes, a cure for what? And Bob just responds, oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why she's covering it up. But this is the first time we really see Barb looking unwell.
Yeah, exactly. She's looking a little bit peaky.
She's looking very peaky. Yeah. I don't know why she's concealing it. Like, does she not want to make trouble?
It was later on she tells him...
English stiff upper lip?
Well, maybe. Like, later on she tells him, oh, don't make a fuss.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like she doesn't want to worry anyone else. Maybe that is it. But it feels like if she were to tell the doctor, for all she knows, maybe the doctor could go, oh, you know what? It's fine. We've got a sink here. Let's just run your hands under the water.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine.
And it will sort you out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really don't know why she doesn't want to mention it.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they've now deciphered all these notes, and the doc says DN6 is everlasting and lethal to humans.
Yeah.
Bob is pretty upset, but just claims that it's because she's got an empty tummy. And also, this is where she says, don't make a fuss.
She is morally outraged as well. Like, it's not just her own plight.
Totally. Definitely.
But the doctor has a really good idea as well at this point, which is that they should get on the telephone.
Yeah. Now, turns out maybe not the best idea, actually.
Well, it didn't quite add up at the time. Like, why would they be able to be heard on the telephone? But I could see there was like a funneling technique. Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I thought?
The frequency.
The note that I made was, I'm hoping they'll call the TARDIS somehow. I figured, okay, wait, he says that's the solution. Maybe he can somehow, like, basically summon the TARDIS. That's what I figured.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and it would kind of make sense, especially within the, like, 1960 whatever context, that maybe he utters a few code words into any phone line, and the TARDIS, being a police phone box, will pick it up.
That is a super good idea.
Yeah, that's
never happens.
Never happened.
Super good idea.
That was my theory at the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, they somehow managed to lift the receiver, meaning, relatively speaking, they're at least 100 times stronger than an ant. Because this receiver, it flies off, right?
No, they use an Archimedes type system.
Like, they really don't do that. They use the Egyptian slavery system of lots of different hands on a heavy object.
Alright, they use a cork. They use, like...
Yeah, okay, they prop it open. They prop it open, prop it up with...
To try and lever it open.
Okay, fine.
But they don't actually lever it open. Yeah. They just all lift and shut the cork.
They lift it up, exactly.
Yeah.
Try to call the police.
It would have made sense if they had levered it, but they didn't.
So they try to call the police, it turns out, but no dice doesn't work because it just sounds like squeaks to the others. And the way... Actually, I think we talked about this before, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. They're all collectively shouting into the receiver.
Yeah.
Like, can you hear us? And all we hear back is like, and that's it.
I don't remember hearing anything back. Like, it seems as though they couldn't hear anything. Whereas I would have thought if they were listening, it would be like a huge noise, like an earthquake.
What really should happen is it should be like...
Should have blown them up.
Exactly. It should be like in Back to the Future 1.
Yeah.
Where Marty McFly just flips everything up to 11 and flies back. That's what should have happened. Anyway, it doesn't really work. Bob collapses, and it takes them a while to give a shit, but when they finally notice that she's on the ground, Doc recognizes the same aroma as before on her hands.
Yeah.
On the handkerchief. And tells her that if they get her back to her regular size, very specific prediction here, by the way, he says the insecticide...
70%.
Yeah, he says the insecticide on her hands will be 70 times less dangerous.
Yeah.
He literally just plucks these numbers out of the ether.
It does make sense. The whole thing, in theory, makes sense.
Sure, but
if you've got a tiny bit of poison on your fingertip compared to your body's mass, like, it makes sense.
You know what? I think it doesn't make sense.
Well, maybe the number doesn't make sense.
No. Not even the number.
Well, you think so? Okay. So when they rematerialise and get bigger, you think all the poison on her should get bigger.
Exactly. Which is why, spoiler alert, at the end, when the little seed, the wheat that they bring in, that doesn't change size. Why does that not change size?
Sorry? The wheat does change size. That's why he brought it in.
No, it doesn't change size. It remains the exact same size. They change size around it.
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
is why it's tiny.
Sorry.
Whereas
Yes.
what really should be happening, if the pressure is now sort of decompressing, right? If they're being decompressed now, then that also should grow, right? Everything that's inside the TARDIS should be growing.
So they should have a giant piece of wheat.
Yeah, it should still be like whatever.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Size,
I see what you're saying. But you don't know how the TARDIS recalibration of size thingy works. So it may only work on like,
now I
human
wish I
organic
read
structures.
that memo. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah, but like that's why it's a Deus Ex Machina. Like because you can't explain it. Like you can't come in with your science and say
no,
that just doesn't work.
We then see Forrester trying to dial out, but not being able to because obviously they left the phone off the hook.
Yeah.
So at this point, my note also was like, okay, I'm thinking he'll come back, find the receiver resting on corks or whatever, and then kill Smithers, assuming that Smithers has done this as part of some sort of conspiracy against him. And then shortly thereafter, basically that is what happens. Like almost. Yeah.
But that's not why he goes to kill Smithers.
No.
The reason he goes to kill Smithers is because Smithers says, hang on a second, I just want to go check Pharaoh's notes.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, wait, why?
At which point he must realise, because, I mean, and this hasn't really been made clear to us, but that Smithers will uncover the fact that the insecticide is completely deadly.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Well, he's spent like half of his life working on this insecticide for like 10 years or something, and he's never noticed.
No, while it took Pharaoh maybe a day of testing it on wheat to figure it out.
Yeah.
Sorry, not testing it on wheat, testing it on his own front yard, by the way. Or backyard, possibly.
Dedicated to the cause.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He could be killing himself by testing this on his own turf.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So
it's a pretty big oversight on Smithers' part. But all the same, that's what Forrester's worried about. He's worried about Smithers uncovering this fact from Pharaoh's notes.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, and
you're totally right.
And when Smithers leaves the room, he pulls his gun out immediately.
Yeah, and like checks it for bullets. He's like, I'm gonna pop a cap in his ass.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to the gang, and now Bob doesn't want to go back to the TARDIS because it turns out she wants to save the planet.
Yeah.
And so good for you, Bob, and good for us by proxy.
So at this point, we cut to the operator, who we had a little segment of being suspicious. We cut to the operator, and she's tricking Forrester. So she's rung him up to say that he's got a call from Whitehall, yeah? To say that Pharaoh has a call from Whitehall.
Ah, you know what? The Bobby, he wasn't there before. This is where the Bobby turns up.
Who was she talking to before then? Because there was someone
Oh,
there.
you're right, there was someone there.
I think it was the Bobby.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was.
Alright, fine.
Anyway, cut to the operator is tricking Forrester.
Yeah.
So she rings up saying that Pharaoh has a call from Whitehall.
Yeah.
And
she tells the Bobby
him,
that
are you Mr. Pharaoh? And he like panics and goes, No,
and she goes like, oh, you're the other man.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, and she's like, okay, I really need to talk to Mr. Pharaoh.
Yeah. 2 seconds later.
Hold on 1 second.
Literally 1 second, please.
Yeah, literally 1 second. Puts his hanky
on the phone, and then continues to speak in the exact same tone of voice as before.
In the exact same voice.
Fucking ridiculous.
She sees through it immediately.
Yeah, she even tells the oldest Bobby on the force that this is clearly the same chap as before.
Yeah, you better get there.
Yeah, Bobby half puts on a helmet and heads off.
Like, what's he going to do in the face of a gun?
No, I have no idea. But anyway, so we get a glimpse of Smithers examining weeds in the garden, and then looking up as though he's had this revelation, and clearly this is where he realizes, oh my god, DN6 is actually lethal.
Yeah, and because he's a good guy.
Yeah, because he's a good guy, he actually now wants to do the right thing. Yeah. Well, at the very least, he wants to spend more time on his work, right, and like fix it.
But Forrester would have won. He would have beaten everyone with his gun. He'd have killed the policeman and Smithers.
Yeah.
Except
the gang have devised a plan.
This is really well done as well.
Really?
I
really?
think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I love this bit.
Okay, I love this bit as well, but the execution is terrible.
No, I don't.
Okay, fine. Sorry, the climax is terrible. Okay, we'll get to it. Okay.
So the doctors decided it'd be a good idea to make a fire to try and alert the authorities.
Oh, he's sounding like he's the biggest pyromaniac on the block.
But he wants to make a fire to alert the authorities, try and get some attention.
Yeah.
They manage to light a match.
Yeah, like Ian and Susie, they use it as a battering ram.
Well,
which is great.
They run along it sideways.
Yeah. Susie even says, like, oh, like a battering ram.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not really like a battering ram. Battering ram just batters. This was causing friction that lights a match.
Yeah. Dude, I'm using Susan's words here. All right, while they're doing that, Bob is standing right. Is it Ian and Bob? No, sorry, it's Doc and Bob are standing next to this enormous thing, this can, right? Pressurized can, on the side of which, in huge letters, it says. Sorry?
That can has DN6 in it.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It has DN6. And it's a pressurized can. And on the side of it, in huge letters, it says, highly flammable. And Bob still asks, oh, doesn't it mean that this thing is just gonna melt? Like, no, that's what flammable means, you idiots.
But because they use the DN6, it makes like the ending.
Oh, it's tragic. It's not tragic. It's poetic justice. Exactly. Dude, great minds.
Yeah.
All right. So then cut back. Cut back to Smithers and Forrester. They're in the garden.
So they're doing a slow burn on the DN6. They're firing the outside of the.
They've juiced up the gas. There's fire,
and it's only a matter of time before it explodes.
Perfect timing, by the way, because Smithers and Forrester, they're in the garden. Forrester's told him everything while pointing a gun at him.
Yeah.
And they go into the lab just as the fire's probably about to start. Mm-hmm. The can explodes.
Yeah. And it goes directly into Forrester's eyes.
Directly at it.
Nowhere else. Doesn't hurt Smithers at all. Just goes straight into Forrester's.
That's why I'm saying.
Brilliant shot.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying it's such an anticlimax, because not only is there no fire, it sounds like someone's just popping a finger in a cheek. Right. That's what it sounds like.
Here's the thing about this,
Yeah.
So, presumably, the troupe, we know the troupe are not entirely aware of the ins and outs of this story. Yeah. They don't know that Smithers is a good guy.
No, they have no idea.
They don't know that Forrester is a bad guy. It is dumb, blind luck that it goes into his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they managed to save the day.
They, by the way, had no idea that this DN6 may be endorsed by the government. The whole idea of okay, we're going to save the planet by thwarting their plans it's literally just based on a hypothesis, because very possibly it's just the pet project of some senior citizen in his garage.
Okay. But it is, that's true actually. Yeah. Why would they think that it would be distributed everywhere? Yeah. It is clearly a poison.
Yeah.
But it could be, some nerd in his garage just coming up with poisons.
Yeah, in fact, the fact that it has clearly been used on this dude's front or back garden is almost evidence of the fact that it's a small-scale operation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, actually, the more likely explanation from what they know is that this guy's a terrorist.
Yeah.
So it is good that they're stopping him, but they're not aware that they're actually saving the country, although they seem to be aware, so it doesn't quite add up.
No, not really. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get back to the story. You were saying it blows up straight in his eyes.
We're basically there. It goes straight in his eyes.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, the police arrive.
Yeah. Well, it goes in his eyes, Smithers takes his gun, then Bobby takes the gun from Smithers.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
End scene.
Yeah. This summary of the occurrence is about 70 times as action-packed as the actual scene. And yes, I am deliberately using the same number the Doctor did. But, okay, anyway, so the Doc picks up a seed. One of the, some of the weeds. Is seed the right word here?
Probably not.
Is it just wheat? Maybe it's just wheat.
Is it wheat seed?
Wheat seed? I have no idea. Maybe someone can Wikipedia that, and please don't hold it against us.
He seems to bring it back in the TARDIS for no other reason other than to prove what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And to prove that they've gotten bigger.
Yeah.
Although, I guess that kind of makes sense. He wants to see that it's worked properly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, he figures, okay, no, we're going to have a QED moment. Mm-hmm. So they go back into the TARDIS, and which, by the way, must take them forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't see
We're not interested in that.
No. We're just going to cut back to the TARDIS, and the Doctor says, we're going to dematerialize now in the exact same fashion as before, but reversed.
Yeah. Fast return switch.
Essentially. As they do that, we see the seed or whatever, we see it shrinking.
Yeah.
And this is, my note is why. I mean, but I already made that point. I reckon that everything that is inside the TARDIS, should grow.
But to be fair, you don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
None of us know how it works.
But it is ridiculous, by the way, because Ian, who is, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but he's a science teacher. He is baffled. He is flummoxed. And
he
even
says, it's disappeared.
Oh my god, it's disappeared. Bob immediately feels better. And Ian then thanks the Doc. And the Doc even says, "Not at all, dear boy, always at your service."
It's quite true that the TARDIS does seem to be incredibly selective in terms of what it makes bigger again and what it, it keeps at the same relative size.
It is also possible, I'm more likely to agree with this theory than you are because of our disagreements in Edge of Discretion. But in my opinion, the TARDIS is already now somewhat intuitive.
Okay.
And it's possible that for this reason,
the
TARDIS chooses to, maintain its aspect ratio.
So you've got the TARDIS is already sentient. It can detect the difference between that wheat and between Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in a sense,
it does,
including the poison, by the way, on her fingers.
Yeah, the poison is a little bit problematic because. So what about everything else on their persons? So the Doctor,
not clothes, but you mean like dirt? And stuff.
Because
the dirt should end up being microscopic.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's not. The Doctor has some stuff on his hands. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Doctor has some stuff on his hands and
on his face, and Susie as well from having climbed up the drain pipe.
Yeah, and that dirt, or whatever it is, stays at the same relative size. But the poison doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, doesn't even say, you probably want to clean up now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly, because the dirt is just as all-pervasive as it was before when they were small.
Very true.
The TARDIS has made the dirt bigger, but it hasn't made the poison bigger.
Also very true.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go to clean themselves up, and we end
They all wash their hands.
Yeah, but we end on the Doctor, now on his own, at the TARDIS controls. The scanner is still broken. Mm-hmm. He's somewhat upset by this.
As you would be.
Yeah, and they start to materialize, and the Doc says to himself, "Perhaps I shall know now where we are." Yeah. End of Planet of Giants. Kablamatron.
So, final thoughts. Reviews, I guess.
Reviews. Okie dokie.
Okay.
We just took a little break, ladies and gentlemen, and have decided that because most likely I went first the last time, Flaphammer's going to start now. It is possible that we misremember
We
that,
might be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway, Flappy, take it away.
So, I'm caught in two minds a little bit. There is so much to me that is pleasing about this episode.
Yeah.
There is some, they've taken so much on, actually, with this episode. They've tried to achieve things that, with the budget they would have had and with the, being in 1964, were so difficult. They're so out there concepts. The prop work is great, as discussed. The props are absolutely brilliant. The ant amazed me, how realistic it was.
Oh, the fly, you mean?
Oh, sorry, the fly. Yeah. The ant was good.
The ant was good as well. Yeah.
The ant was good as well, but the fly was the best.
Yeah,
the fly
was alive,
the best one.
So yeah.
I was really super impressed with that. But there were also other very poor pieces of production in there. There were quite a lot of still images. There were quite a lot of perspective shots that didn't quite look right. The one that's springing to my mind is the dead guy on the ground and Ian standing in front of him.
Yeah, but sorry, I don't want to in any way influence your review. But no, seriously, we have said that we will not judge the episodes based on the limitations of 1964 production.
I know. But they have done better in the past. So
yeah, they have.
I think we can compare it to other Doctor Who episodes that have been from around this time.
Sure.
I think there was a big mix in this episode of the good and the bad, basically. Okay. So I don't want to mark it down too harshly. But they just took so much on. And I did, as I said at the start of this podcast, I did get a sense that we were in a children's TV show sometimes. When they're all shouting down the phone collectively together. The way the Doctor is a lot less grumpy than he has been before. He shows so much more grandfatherliness, so much more concern for Ian and Barbara. It's become a little bit more family-like, the show. Which I think maybe takes an edge off it, actually. It felt a little more childish than some of the previous episodes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that.
As I said, I'm caught in two minds. I don't want to mark it down too harshly, because I think they've done some fantastic things. In summation, I think they took an awful lot on, and I think they achieved some great things and some slightly less great things. Yeah. So I'm going to give this episode, on balance, a 3.2. Yeah. And there were parts of it that were down as low as a 2. There were parts of it that were up as high as a 4.5. So I think 3.2 is about right.
Okay.
There were some things that didn't make sense. We had a long discussion about, things getting bigger, things getting smaller.
Yeah.
And, to a degree, some of it didn't add up. But as I was trying to say to you when I was trying to defend the show a little bit, we don't understand how the mechanisms work at this point, and there is room for manoeuvre for them. So I'm going to let it go.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it a 3.2.
A flappy for 3.2.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Oh, very good. I'm going to say right off. Sorry, are you done?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Okie dokie. In that case, I got to say, I'm a little bit surprised because before we started recording this, I said that you were probably going to give it a much lower mark than I would, but I'm giving this 2.8.
Okay.
So, here's why.
All right.
Okay,
here's why you probably thought that. When I arrived at your flat this evening, obviously I was full of, I've just watched this episode today.
Well, we spent about 10 minutes just getting all the phlegm and the...
Yeah, obviously that is the first thing you mention. Oh, do you...
oh my god, this is the worst ever. Blah, blah.
What do you remember this stupid thing that happened?
Yeah.
Do you remember that, incredibly badly done shot? Do you remember... But, actually going through the episode again, there were some really great things. And as we were recording the podcast, my mind was kind of bending. It was going, actually, no, it's not bad. It's not that bad. It's daring in its way.
All right, sure.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, I'm giving this 2.8, and here's why. I think the high points of this are really, to be honest, are the production value. Mm-hmm. The props are fantastic. I thought so much work went into this.
Yeah.
And by the way, I sent you the links to this as well on YouTube. There's this thing about the design of the Daleks, the first design of the Daleks, and they say in that that the first few series of Doctor Who, that it was basically this family-run company somewhere in Devon, I think it was, that did all of the prop work for Doctor Who, all of it. And so the same people who did that did the Daleks, did this. I think it's fantastic work. However, it seems as though too much emphasis was placed on the props. So we have these fantastic scenes, Ian's on top of a huge briefcase, but at the same time, it's all set, they're all just, the plot is not strong enough. The plot is just there as an excuse to show these props, if that makes sense. In my opinion, this story arc could have been more interesting if the setting in which they had been shrunken had been more interesting. I don't give a shit about what happens in some dude's back garden. The little murder story was, barely touched upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
The little murder story wasn't that interesting, to be fair.
And in fact, it would have been much more interesting if they had known about it, if it had somehow impacted on them.
Yeah.
But it didn't, so that was kind of an anticlimax for me.
And the other thing we never mentioned while we were reviewing it, we talked about it before, but the cat. The cat.
The cat is the Yeti of the story. The cat turns up.
I told you not to say the Yeti of the story.
Sorry.
The Yeti turns up again. We get it, people. Although it's not the same Yeti.
It's not. Fine. It doesn't turn up and whatever.
The cat is an unexplored thing. They make a really big deal of it.
Yeah. And then we never see the cat again.
We see the cat possibly for about 15 seconds in total.
Yeah. It is terribly dangerous to traverse a garden when there's a cat around, but it's apparently less dangerous than going into a lab full of volatile chemicals, setting fire to pressurized cans, and trying to thwart a giant-sized murder plan. Ridiculous. Anyway, to summarize, here's a suggestion. A retroactive suggestion to the production team of Doctor Who.
Who are all dead.
So, they're not all dead.
That's true. They're not.
I think I'm glad that this was a 3-episode arc, because I don't want to see a return to, well, not a return to, sort of an in advance return to Land of the Giants with Doctor Who, because I saw that as a kid in Land of the Giants, and honestly, it doesn't hold up. So I wouldn't have liked to see that, but I would have liked to see them shrunken somewhere else. In fact, Barbara at one point says, if they find us, we will get probed. Why the shit did that not happen? That would have been fantastic. If they had been, instead of them being separated by Ian climbing into a matchbox or Ian and Barbara jumping into a briefcase and turning into dashboard Elvises, it would have been much more interesting if they had been in a lab and they were
they've been discovered.
Exactly.
And they were put inside test tubes. And...
Exactly. And like the Doctor and Susan now are faced with like, okay, we need to get to the TARDIS, but we also need to, rescue them before the government learns of us, or before they find the secret of our shrinkage. Like, whatever, right? I think that would have been much more interesting. And as actually one of our... We'll get to the listener reviews in a second, but as we literally just read, one of our listeners, Kyle, thank you very much, pointed out it would have been much more interesting if Barbara had not kept her being poisoned a secret, because that would have added another element of just pressure and stress.
I never quite made sense of why she kept it a secret.
No, but her excuse of like, don't make a fuss, that does not hold up.
Yeah, it could have been used as a driving force, because there could have been a time pressure on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2.8. High points, props, low points, plot. Boom. Done. Listener reviews?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listener reviews. Well, you know what? No episode of Who Back When would be complete without a Marius Kane and Gina Guerrero review. So
weekly contributors. They actually contribute as often as we do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with them. So as per usual, we're gonna split this one up. We're starting off with John David on Twitter at Marius Kane with a K. Look him up.
So John says, Barbara and her companions, Ian, Susan and the cranky old man, get back to Earth. But sadly, due to his TARDIS malfunctioning, again, they shrunk to the size of a small pea. The good.
The first scene. The doors opening mid-flight led me to think we were in for another in the TARDIS romp like Edge of Destruction. I almost said destruction there. Sadly, it wasn't to be. The production value...
I don't know about the sadly, but yeah.
He goes on. The production values in this episode are very good, considering this is 4 years before Irvin Allen's Land of the Giants.
Ah, there you go.
This looks significantly better.
The bad. This was originally written as a 4-parter, and I cannot help to imagine how awfully slow it would have been with another episode of the Doctor and Ian discussing chemical formula. And speaking of which, Ian, who's meant to be a science teacher, doesn't seem to understand chemistry in this episode. Maybe the constant being knocked out during season 1 means that he's gained amnesia. The ending. Barbara is cured by a deus ex machina. I would have liked the Doctor and Ian to come up with a cure for Barbara rather than just, let's take off and hope that fixes everything.
Overall, it's fun, it's something different, and it shows the TARDIS crew in a good light, and no one seems to go on holiday or asleep for a couple of episodes. But sadly, the story could have been so much more. It seems like a little bit of filler before the next episode, and the TARDIS crew don't actually interact with the guest cast in any way. It's like two separate, but related stories, weaving their way, nearly touching each other, but never quite doing so. Someone wrote an episode of The Avengers, and dropped Ian and Barbara in, rather than Steed and Mrs. Peel. 2.6.
Fantastic review.
Fantastic, as per usual.
That was better than my review. For sure.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
It was definitely better than my review. Yeah, I get, like, and again, that was something I said to you when I first turned up this evening, was that, the previous episode was huge in scope. And the next episode, spoiler alert, is going to be absolutely massive. It's going to be, one of the defining Doctor Who's.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the middle child.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much, JD. At Marius Kane, as I said, follow him on Twitter. Next up, a Twitter comment. Very briefly, from Gina Guerrero, at Gina Guerrero 1. She says, Planet of Giants is one of the funniest Doctor Who episodes that inspired Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Well, it's in quite a small category there. But absolutely
no
right.
pun intended.
Thank you. Actually wasn't.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Very good.
There. But yeah, I was laughing, to be fair. I mean, I try and give everything the benefit of the doubt and say to myself, yes, it's 1964, but there are things that are just absolutely funny. One of the best ones being Ian inside the matchbox doing a mime. I mean, it went on for so long.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Gina.
Okay, and we have another Twitter review from Esther Back in Time at ES2812. Follow her. She says, great episode. I'm looking forward to Planet of Giants. It's one of my favourites, and Ian really shows off his great science skills.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very fair observation.
It's a very fair observation.
Jesus Christ. The notepad, the chemical formula, the freaking molecules. Jesus Christ, this guy, he actually even tells the doctor, like, oh, this is a little bit over my head.
Well, he doesn't, he kind of is trying to explain that that's not his area.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so chemistry isn't his area.
I think maybe chemistry isn't his zone. Like, maybe he's a biologist.
Yeah, but he's a science teacher. He's not a bio teacher.
I know,
he's a science teacher.
I had science teachers at school that didn't understand chemistry. Like, they'd gone to university, done a biology degree, and were being forced to teach chemistry. And they were doing so directly out of the textbook because it didn't make any sense to them. Like, I remember you, Mr. Morgan. Like, you didn't get it.
That's like, I actually remember, this is a weird tangent, non-Doctor Who tangent, but I actually do remember from school at one point, for like maybe a week, my gym teacher was subbing for the social sciences teacher.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, wait, why? Because you're a member of society?
Well, I think it's gym teachers. Often they've done a sports science degree, which some schools think is okay for them to teach actual science with that degree. But
anyway.
Yeah, it never flies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, Esther.
And apologies to any PE teachers listening. I loved PE. I actually did.
Next up, we have another review, this time from, a first-time contributor.
Yeah, a long-time listener, I hope, and first-time contributor.
Yeah, well, first-time contributor in terms of mini-reviews, but he has contributed to the website.
Yes.
Kyle Rath, we're talking about you.
Yeah, you're the man.
Yeah, Kyle Rath, another proponent of Who Back When, and a hero of this podcast.
And we should say, when we read this review, it's mind-blowingly good.
It is. It really is.
Like, and we decided that we're going to post the whole thing on the website. Cause
we're gonna post both. We'll check this out. Okay, if you have any objections to this, I doubt that you have people who have sent in mini reviews in the past. We're just gonna post them. Whatever we read on the podcast, we're just gonna post them, even retroactively now.
Basically, this is quite a long review, but it's really good. You should totally check it out on the website. Yeah. Because you need to read it in full.
Yeah. Odds are you're actually on the page right now listening to this.
Yeah. So scroll down, people.
Yeah. But we are going to read. Let's read the start of it.
Yeah.
And for the rest of it, this is going to be a little bit of a teaser. But for the rest of the review, seriously, please go and read it on the website.
So Kyle says, to kick off the second season of Doctor Who, the BBC felt it was appropriate to have a story where the drama hinges on an often overlooked aspect of life in the TARDIS, dimension.
Specifically, the physical dimension. Continuing on with the narrowly missing the intended target premise, the TARDIS crew ends up in 1960s London, only this time they are the wrong size. Insert applicable and predictable Lilliputian jokes here.
However, a Doctor Who serial would not be complete without a conflict. In this case, the backdrop is a story surrounding a deadly insecticide, a murder, a meek, spineless scientist, and an unscrupulous ne'er-do-well with dollar signs in his eyes.
As I rewatched this episode, I recognized something which would become the norm for Doctor Who. The Doctor and companions interfering with the greater good. This is an important distinction given their travels in Season 1 consisting mostly of trying to rewrite events for whatever personal reasons.
In the opening, there is a key bit of dialogue from Ian. How can we understand? You never explained it to us. This identifies a very important aspect of the Doctor's relationship with his young companions and will become a common issue throughout the Doctor's travels. Even with Matt Smith's Doctor, there is often a rapid-fire delivery of technobabble, with little to no breakdown or explanation.
The Giants ended up being merely set dressing and could have been easily replaced with an overheard conversation by the TARDIS crew as the two men left the lab. The story became intriguing once it was apparent that the insecticide was really bad and needed to be stopped, and that, despite their size, they could still affect positive change. Okay, so this is but the introduction to this mini review. What we haven't read out is a list of positives and negatives. And for this list, seriously, go to the website, read it, because it includes such tidbits such as where did the Bobby come from? Or, as mentioned earlier, why could Ian and Bob not just discuss the fact that she's been poisoned, because it would add that extra element of pressure.
And some really good points about how we see the development of the characters in this story and how there is a bit of a change going on. Yeah. And also makes the point that it's a really good, straightforward plot that's easy to follow and is actually quite enjoyable. It did keep me engaged throughout, but it was mercifully short, as you said. Yeah. But that kind of kept it short and sweet.
Yeah. So, oh my god. We finished yet another one. Okay, check this out. Next up, we're heading back into Dalek territory.
It's gonna be insane.
Oh my god, Dalek Invasion of Earth. People, please, keep sending us your mini reviews. Tweets your thoughts. Facebook your thoughts.
Yeah, if you were wondering whether you should review the Daleks, like, we've got the answer for you. This is the one. Seriously, it's gonna go bonkers.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you tell that neither Flappy nor I work in marketing? Anyway, are you stoked? I'm so freaking stoked that we're going to revisit an alien.
I'm really stoked.
Yeah?
Well, obviously, this is one that gets revisited quite regularly.
But so far we have.
For a good reason.
Yeah.
They're fucking amazing.
Exactly. Alright, so I think we've been going on long enough.
Yeah, I think we've blathered.
Yeah.
as much as it is possible to blather about, maybe 55 minutes of footage? We managed to make like an hour and a half episode again.
Yeah. Well, we're into series 2 and we're going on, so please follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ponkin.
I'm at One Too Many Mornings.
Yes, you are. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/whobackwhen. Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Tweet Ponkin. I mean, just absolutely do. At Ponkin.
At Ponkin. I said that, but thank you for,
did you? Sorry.
Thank you for
clarifying.
Yeah. Dealing out that extra deserved emphasis. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry if this episode was a little bit all over the place, but we will return in the next one with Daleks, and it's going to kick ass. Kabalamatron.
Catch you on the flippity flop. I'm running out of things to say.
Really? Because they're just my things.
Yeah, I know, but it just keeps going.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Shamalama ding dong.
Oh, shut up! God!
Double whammy.
Oh, terrible. Okay, rock on, people. Ciao, ciao.
Who back when?